This is the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast, show number 692. We're going to talk about Irish sessions with Shannon Heaton. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast, helping you celebrate Celtic culture through music. I am Mark Gunn. I'm a Celtic musician and host of Pub Songs and Stories. This podcast is for fans of Celtic music. It is here to build a diverse Celtic community and help the incredible artists who so generously share their music with you. If you hear music you love, please email the artists. Let them know you heard them on the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast. Musicians depend on your generosity to release new music, so please find a way to support them. Buy a CD, album pen, shirt, digital download, or join their community on Patreon. You can find a link to all the artists in the show notes, along with showtimes when you visit our website at CelticMusicPodcast.com. Email follow@BestCelticMusic to learn about how to subscribe to the podcast, and you'll get a free music-only episode. And if you are a Celtic musician and want your music featured on the show, I would love to play your music. Please submit your band to be played on the podcast. You don't have to send in any music, and you will get a free ebook called The Celtic Musician's Guide to Digital Music, where you'll learn also how to follow the podcast. Again, it's 100% free. Just email follow@bestcelticmusic.net. It is a brand new year, and I am excited to share more music. For this is going to be, this summer, we're going to hit the 20th anniversary of the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast. Again, hard to believe. I can't believe that it's been going for almost 20 years. So thank you so much for being here, supporting this podcast through all the changes it's gone, including the recent ones with Patreon. I really appreciate all your generosity and support, and I hope you will continue to do that through the new year. Today, I have an interview. This is actually an old interview I did with Shannon Heaton. She hosts the Irish Music Stories podcast, and I did this a number of years back, but I released it on Pub Songs and Stories, which is my companion podcast that I also publish. And I haven't shared it in a long time, so I thought, you know what? This should go out on the regular feed, especially because back when I was at Irish Fest Atlanta, I was chatting with a couple who had not ever been to an Irish session. They didn't know what they were all about. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share with you a little bit about Irish sessions and perhaps how you can get involved in your own if there's one in your community, or at least go enjoy it. All right, we kicked off the show with Natalie Padilla. That was Balsamroot from her album Montana Wildflower. Next up is Joseph Carmichael with Fechin from Desiderium.
to weep. River, rock your fairy boat to sleep. Autumn dusk tide, willow switch, rhyme and reason come unstitched. Come unseen, dip your cup, veil twixt and tween a tuck. Early hawthorn, burnished dew, dimpled rose gold lashing blue. Rock the cradle, shroud her blue. Samhain's frost brought barley's moon. Barley's moon saw her snatched by the sear wind's silvery laugh. What remained? No child of mine, sickly, pale, and dark of eye. Gentle river, this I ask, hold your changeling daughter fast.
After Joseph Carmichael came Carey with the Sere Wind. That's from her album, The Last Bough. Then came Robert Zielinski with the Dragonfly from Kiangardarup. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that, Robert. I apologize. I do want your feedback. What are you doing today while listening to the podcast? I'd love to see a picture of what you're doing while listening. If there's a new CD that you've found, a Celtic band that you've seen, send a picture. Email follow@bestcelticmusic.net. I do not have any feedback to share this week, and that is because I am pre-recording this episode because on Monday I'm having my hip replaced. So hopefully I can get back to walking. I won't be going back to running ever again, sadly. But I can get back to walking at the very least. And the past few months has been very difficult for me doing that. But I'm really excited to get my hip replaced so that I can get back to it. So consequently, there are a few episodes that are going to be pre-recorded. But if you have feedback and you want to share, I would love to put it in the show. So please email follow@bestcelticmusic.net and send me your feedback. Let's get to the interview with Shannon Heaton. But before we do that, let's play some music. This is Matt and Shannon Heaton with P. Joe Hayes No. 2 and Cottage in the Grove and Mother and Child from Whirring Wings, their latest album. I've seen your name for a number of years in the Irish community. It wasn't until Irish Music Stories came along that I really found more about you and your music. What I find especially interesting, you had a number of video episodes where you talked about basically coming into trad Irish community and session. So I guess what I want to get a start with is how you got your start with Irish traditional music, how you got started playing music in general.
Great. Well, it's awfully sweet that you, Mark, would have learned a bit about me from this podcast, Irish Music Stories. In fact, it's my attempt to tell other people's stories. So kind of sweet that then you would also learn a bit about me. But I mean, I guess for me, the story of Irish music all along the way has been one of learning about this music, loving the music. But I think I love the music because it's played in this social, really lovely community way. So that was always the pull for me. And so all along, for me, getting into Irish music, it's kind of just been about learning about this whole other aspect that transcends just music, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when I was 7 years old, I lived in Nsukka, Nigeria. What does that have to do with Irish music? Mark looks at me. I had a neighbor from Belgium who played the tin whistle, and she taught me a bunch of Irish tunes. And that tied in neatly, very neatly, with the fact that my family, really an Irish-American family, always celebrated St. Patrick's Day. And we always sang these Irish-American ballads. And so I knew these ballads, and I knew these tunes from my Belgian neighbor. And then years later, I was living in Chicago, and my neighbor happened to be John Williams, who plays the accordion, a great, wonderful recording artist that your listeners may know. He started out with the band Solace and did some great music for Road to Perdition, a film with Paul Newman. But John was my neighbor, and John would teach me all these Irish tunes. And then I would teach him a little bit of flute, which I'd been learning in the band all along, the school band. And before long, he was pulling me out to the sessions.
The John Williams?
There are three big John Williamses, right? There's the film composer, right, and there's the classical guitar player, and then there's our John Williams, the Irish music world. That's
who I was thinking of. I mean, I know there's the others, but I was thinking of...
Yeah, great musician. He's well known maybe to some of your listeners with his early work with the band Solace. Right. And he had great solo recordings as well. But John became a real friend and really a teacher. He would show me all these tunes, and he was working on the flute, so I would show him flute technique in exchange. And he's to this day, I really consider him one of my biggest teachers and friends in Irish music.
So that got you started playing in that. Did you find a band, or did you start off with the sessions?
Sessions all the way. Sessions all the way. I mean, I started off by learning tunes in John's kitchen until one day he said, okay, it's time to take this out. We're going to go to the session on Sunday. You're going to come in and you're going to play these tunes. And so I did, and he introduced me to everybody, and Brendan and Siobhan McKinney, who play flute, they were at that session, and they gave me an LP of Matt Malloy's, and they said, here, learn these tunes. And so I did, and then I came back the next week, I learned these tunes. But it was years of playing in sessions. And when I say playing in sessions, sometimes that meant that I was sitting there listening to other people and just kind of taking it in and playing the tunes that I knew and recording some tunes that I didn't know and just trying to learn from everybody. So it was years of doing that before it ever felt appropriate or necessary for me to kind of perform this music.
Right. When did you start performing?
I guess Matt and I started performing music in the 90s in Chicago.
You met your husband at one of the sessions, or where?
I met him through Northwestern University, sort of. Okay. I needed a guitar player for a wedding gig. I mean, I was playing, gigs, just all sorts of types of music at gigs. And I was looking for a guitar player, and I got 3 names of people at Northwestern, 3 names of guitar students. Uh-huh. And he was the second on the list, but he was the first one who was home. Yeah.
Lucky for you.
Yeah, and he had an interest in Irish music too. Matt really wasn't playing all that much Irish music, but he liked it. And I was really into it, so I kind of pulled him in. And he really loved tango music, and he pulled me into that, which was really cool. I loved learning about that as well.
So y'all started learning together, and then what happened?
Well, I have to admit that the Irish side of things did take over.
Right.
I think mostly because of where we were. In Chicago, there was just such a wonderful Irish music scene. And right in our town where we were living in Evanston. And then we moved down to Chicago, and we just met so many musicians in town. It really became a big part of our social life. It was our friend set, even outside of the music, was all the Irish musicians. And again, that's really what eventually pulled us to Boston. And it's what really has anchored us here. I mean, a lot of our dearest friends we met through playing Irish music, and we get together and we do still play music with all those people. But sometimes when we get together, there are no instruments out. It's just everybody hanging out. But there's kind of, I don't know, there's like this shared backstory of playing all the music together that connects us, I think.
So you got into Boston, and did you start touring out from there, or what?
Well, we had started touring with a band called Shukra back when we were living in Chicago. And Shukra was this, initially when we started it, it was a quartet with a great singer called Kat Eggleston and a fiddle player called Andrew Bird. Andrew Bird went on to kind of be like an indie pop, kind of an indie folk dude. But he played Irish fiddle in our band, and we had a great time. And then when we moved to Boulder, Colorado for a while, we met another singer out there, Beth Leachman, great singer. So we were a trio, basically, with her. And then we hooked up later with a fiddle player called Sam Amadon, who remains a dear friend of ours, and we play a lot with him. Again, Sam does a lot of indie folk stuff, but he's just a great Irish fiddle player as well, and a dear friend. Yeah, Shukra, we kept it going. We were in Boulder, Colorado for just a few years, and then moved out to Boston. But we kept it going with Beth for a few years, and then it got a little more cumbersome to keep a band going with one member in Colorado and two in Boston. And then Sam was just sort of occasionally around. He was in Brattleboro, Vermont. But yeah, I guess we stopped really actively playing together around maybe 2004, 2005. And that's when Matt and I as a duo just really stepped it up. Just learned that we could, I think from playing with the trio and then eventually the quartet, I think we had these bigger sound ideas that then when we put it together with the duo, even though it's just the two of us, we tried to find ways to bring in those other parts with just two. So, the whole time we're doing something, I'm playing or I'm singing or I'm playing the accordion, I'm playing the flute, that's my main instrument, or I'm playing the whistle or I'm singing or I'm playing the accordion the whole time. Matt's playing the guitar or the bouzouki or he's singing the whole time. So we kind of try to, I don't know if the word is fill up the space, because sometimes with a duo it's nice that you can have a lot of space as well. But just trying to bring in those bigger arranging concepts that we had learned from playing with bigger groups to just our duo.
Okay, cool. And what has happened since then? How's it come?
Matt and I have maybe 5 or 6 albums together, and to this day, the duo is just our musical mainstay. It's home. And each of us does a lot of playing with a lot of other musicians. I've done a lot of playing with Maeve Gilchrist, who's a great harp player, and with Keith Murphy, who's a wonderful guitar player and singer, and many other groups. It's wonderful on its own, but also it does kind of feed the duo, and I think the same for Matt.
Let's see, why don't we talk about the Irish music stories? What inspired that podcast?
Well, I love Irish music. I think it's great, and there's always more to learn about it for me. From my peers, I'm learning stuff. From my students, I'm learning stuff. With my time in my duo on stage with Matt, I'm learning stuff. From audience members, I learn stuff. I hear people telling me these stories that inspire me. And I guess I just got kind of curious about why so many other people are into it as well, because people play it all around the globe. And so I just started digging. I started asking people, why do so many people play this music? What do you think it's about? And I started these conversations with some of my students and with some of my peers. And then people started to say, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. You should talk to so-and-so. And I just had the idea, why not pull this all together and share these stories with people? So that's how it started.
And your response?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch the downloads grow, but it's also pretty amazing how people just directly get in touch. They have thoughts, and everybody has a totally different idea about what this music and maybe this show means to them. So I love that. I think that's neat. What about you? Do you find that you get a lot of outreach, like people reaching out to you through your podcast, Mark?
Oh, definitely. I try to encourage it, which helps a lot. It's fantastic to hear, and it's pretty incredible when you start getting recognized in places because of the podcast. I got recognized in Ireland and various places around the world where people said, "Are you Mark Gunn?"
Aw, that's nice.
Pretty much because of the podcast. So
that's nice.
It's pretty incredible seeing the response and people loving it for that reason. So
I mean, it's ironic too to me, because the whole idea of this was like me to tell stories other people's stories. So for it to be a window into meeting me, I mean, I guess is inevitable, and it's sort of lovely, but it's also not necessary. I feel like I hope they're also getting in touch with some of the people that I've featured on the show. You know?
And that's one of the great things about, like, for my podcast is the ability to help people who don't get heard be heard, because I love Thistle and Shamrock, but there's a lot of bands I've never heard that have ever made it to Thistle and Shamrock because they have a format that doesn't allow that, basically. Whereas the people that I get to feature are people who can't get picked up by the local Celtic stations or programs or these big ones too, because it's a style of music that's not quite right, for their show.
Yeah, it's not mainstream. Mm-hmm.
So there's something that I can offer to help people, both the traditional and the not so traditional,
cool.
Which I love. I love that.
Yeah.
Seeing your show do so, again, I was really impressed by production level. It sounds like a fantastic NPR program. I'm expecting Bob Boylan to come on and say so, start talking.
Well, thanks. I have to admit, we would have to give my husband Matt some credit with that, because he has to listen to every, first draft of my script where I say, this is cool, but there's no story here, or this part gets boring. So
how do you compose your stories?
Well, I have an idea that I want to investigate. I talk to a bunch of people that I think could have something to say about that idea. Inevitably, people go on tangents, and sometimes something that I thought the interview was going to be about, it doesn't end up being about that, and it's awesome. And so I take the story in a totally different direction because of that. Or maybe I hold on to that cool tangent for a future story. And then I just sort of see maybe 4 or 5 voices speaking on one topic, how they all intersected and maybe how they differed. And I try to be the tour guide and weave those stories together. I do a lot of script writing in the bathtub.
Nice.
And I do a lot of drafts. And I like writing in general, but writing and writing a script for a podcast are 2 different things. So I find I really have to kind of talk them out loud and feel them in my body so that it's really something that I believe and that I would say in a conversational way. So it's not like scripted, it's more...
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That's I do the same thing when I'm writing the show notes for my episodes, because it helps.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it shows because you're very conversational.
Yeah, that's step one doing a podcast.
Yeah.
long have you had a YouTube channel?
I've had this Tune of the Month, initially just audio series, I guess you call it a podcast. And then I turned it into a video somewhere along the way. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago I started doing video. And really I made it for my students, for my private students who come to me regularly, and just for students that I meet at workshops around the country. You know, I only get a chance maybe to work with them once, but it's a great way to offer them something to follow up with every month. So really, it was just something that I was making for my students, and a couple of other people all around the world just started to find it. And I had a number of requests for a video component. So I just do them at the same time. You know, it's just all live, and I have the audio running and the video as well, just in case it's helpful for people to see, you know, flute fingers. Yeah, and, you know, it's not something that I can put a lot of production time into at this point. But it will be fun down the road to really up the game on that one, I guess. Although there are some great online offerings for people learning Irish music that are very professionally done. So, you know, maybe I can just be sort of the chill indie offering for people for now. And that's been really nice. That's been another really nice way to connect with people all around the world. You know, I have a lot of flute players in Germany and some in Italy who contact me monthly, you know, and they ask about the tunes. And it's become increasingly, too, I'm finding with the YouTube component, that's a nice forum for people to post questions, which I totally did not anticipate. You know, I was really delivering them as a one-way street, I thought. Here's some info, do what you want with it. But people are finding it, and they're posting questions, and there's discussion on the YouTube channel. So I love that as well.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's fantastic. I found your YouTube channel from after you contacted me again and started watching a few of the videos. And then I guess what really hit me was when you started talking a little bit also about the Irish music culture too. Again, but going back to the sessions, which I find fascinating. I would love your thoughts about someone who wanted to get started playing in an Irish session. What would be your top suggestions for someone doing that?
That's a good question. Irish sessions are fascinating, and I think hopefully they look like fun to people who don't know a lot about them. And they also might look kind of mysterious to people who don't know a lot about them. And so I think, you know, anytime that you're nervous about something, that I'm nervous about something, if I can kind of demystify it a little bit, that can help. And so a great way to demystify a session is to just, you know, ideally you have one in a town close to you, is to just go a few times, go without the instrument or go without the idea of trying to sing a song, and just, you know, sit at the bar or sit at a table close to the musicians and, you know, just listen and maybe introduce yourself at a conversationally appropriate moment. Yeah. You know, and just kind of getting to know people and getting to observe it and take it all in without the pressure of trying to participate in the beginning, I think can be a bit empowering. I mean, if you know what you're getting into, it's a little less of this scary thing. And if you know people, and if they know that, you know, you seem to enjoy this and you seem to be investing some time into it and you're supportive of it, I mean, I'd be pretty keen to support you if you were coming every week to this session where I sat in and, oh, hey, it's Mark again. Yeah, so Mark, you said last time around, you mentioned that you sing some songs. Maybe next time bring the guitar and sing a few songs or, you know, whatever. So that's, I think, the number one way is to just kind of go to sessions, observe them, see what you can notice yourself about the etiquette. You know, you can learn a lot about the etiquette by going, there are lots of videos online, there's lots of stuff you can read online about proper etiquette of a session, but I think you probably can suss most of that out on your own by just going and observing yourself and introducing yourself. You know, and then beyond that, you've got a crowd who can kind of help induct you into the scene anyway. Any questions that you have, then you have these friends and you can ask them. A great way to learn tunes to play in a session is to ask your new friends, hey, you know, I'd love to sit in and play sometime. Do you mind if I record a few tunes that you play so I can learn them? And then down the road I could play them with you. That's always a good approach. And, you know, as for singing, there are Irish sessions that have maybe a lot of singing. There are Irish sessions that have a lot of tune playing. There's not always the great combination of the two. And in fact, my friend Rory Makem and I were talking about this, about just how disparate that can be. So if you're somebody who knows songs that have choruses, that have, fun, kind of engaging things where you can have a lot of people singing along and being jolly, I think there's a time and a place for that in a tune session. And, if you're somebody who likes to play a few tunes and you go to a singing session, I think there's a time and a place to offer a couple instrumental tunes.
It's always nice to mix them both in there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it would be probably more organic and feel less weird to do that if already you were friendly and knew people's names.
True. Very true.
Just to come in and say, hey, I have this idea. Like, okay, who are you? Yeah.
Very cool. Do you tour a lot?
Yes, Matt and I have toured on 4 continents. We have performed music in many, many different festivals and venues of all sizes, from somebody's living room to a huge concert hall to a huge festival. We have performed all around Thailand. We have performed all around Germany and Switzerland and Holland and Ireland, and we have played on a cruise ship several times. We've played music all around the Caribbean and Alaska and lots of different places all around Canada and the United States, of course. And it's been a wild ride. For sure. The music part is easy. The traveling part is richly rewarding and challenging. Yeah, it's been great. And we have a 7-year-old kid, and he's been along to a lot of the gigs. And he's a pretty good traveler, and that's pretty great. Now that he's in school, we're trying to be a little bit more selective about when we travel, so trying to keep it more on the summer time and the school holiday and the weekends. Not too hard to do that. With the school, really, they have a lot of time off. They have a lot of weekends and weeks off. So, we're managing to kind of balance that.
Do you have any favorite places, either that you've been to, like, say, in Ireland, or perhaps that you've played in Ireland, or, for that matter, anywhere around the world, that any spectacular moments or memories that you have from your travels?
Well, Matt and I had our musical start in County Clare, in Ennis. That was where we used to go. We would stay for 3 months of every winter. We would stay at a friend's house in Clare Castle, which is right outside of Ennis. And we would walk into Ennis every night, and we would play in the sessions. And we were given the greatest welcome by the musicians there. So many people really took us under their wing and taught us tunes and invited us along to the sessions and made us feel very welcome. And it was tough. I remember working really hard to learn those tunes and try to figure out how it all worked. But it was a very important time in my life. We would go back, and there was one night that our friends were doing a CD launch. The Cayley Bandits is the group, and they were doing a CD launch at Brandon's in Ennis. That's a bar. And they asked if we would play a couple of numbers as the warm-up band. I would say that was one of the most memorable times that we've performed in Ireland. It was just like this room full of friends who'd known us from the beginning when we really did not know very much. Seeing us, do this where we knew a little bit more. And in hindsight, we probably weren't very good back then either. And we still have a lot to learn. But I remember that being a very moving night for me. Years later, as I've gone back to Clare to visit everybody, people will still say, wow, welcome back. Welcome. How long are you home? And I'm not Irish. I'm not from Clare. I've never pretended to be. So, but for them, they've really extended that welcome, that home away from home to us. So that's a really important place for me. And then also, I love Galway City. Whenever we've stayed in Galway, we stayed in our friend's house in Craughwell, which is about a 25-minute drive away it's near Loughrea, if anybody knows Galway. But I love that place. And in fact, Matt and I were there on September 11th, 2001, and the parish priest knew that we were there, and he came over immediately to make sure that our families were okay and to offer us support. I thought it was really kind. And that night we went into Galway City to play tunes. What else were we going to do? We just felt so forlorn and, alone. And just going in and playing in this session at the Crane Bar in Galway City and getting to be in the company of other musicians, that was just so nurturing and so healing, just on a personal level. But it was just a show of support for America, too. Galway showed such tremendous support that whole week. They had a huge house and garden show that's a big part of the Galway economy every year, which they canceled completely out of respect, which I thought was, very moving.
If you were going to recommend, what place would you recommend someone to go see?
Ennis is a great town for music. There's always good music. And if you stop in at Cruise's Pub, you could ask what music is on that week.
That Shannon sent you. Okay.
And Clarre FM is the radio station right there in town. And they have lovely trad music shows. And again, sort of the lines are open there with the DJs to log on to the Facebook page as they're playing music and ask, hey, what sessions are on this week? And they're very forthcoming with information and show a real welcome.
The last thing, you sent some music to me, so I thought I might play some of that. I might kick off the show with one of them, the tracks. Can you tell me a little bit about the tracks and the albums from which they came?
Right. So you started off with a set of tunes there. The second tune in the set is called The Reel of Rio, and it's a composition by the great Sean Ryan, a fiddle player with a celebrated following. We played that set of tunes on our album called Blue Skies Above, and that was me and Matt playing with our friend Patty League on drums. And I remember recording that set of tunes with Patty. We kind of didn't really have a plan, and we all just looked at each other in this one moment, and he kind of kicked it into high gear. And I've always remembered that one time of playing that with Patty. Whenever I play The Reel of Rio, I kind of hear Patty playing in the back of my head.
That's awesome. And the song?
So this song is called Mantle of Green, and it's one of the great Napoleonic ballads. So there's a whole bunch of songs that were written about Napoleon and the Napoleonic Wars, because Irish people basically sided with Napoleon, because he was against the British. But also these songs really speak about loss and oppression, and they're beautiful songs. And this is one of the most famous ones. It's called The Mantle of Green. And we recorded it with our friend Mike Block, who's a great cello player, and he plays with Yo-Yo Ma's Silk Road Ensemble. That's from our album called Tell You in Earnest, which is a collection of dialogue ballads, so songs featuring conversations.
Cool. Actually, I do have one more question before we get to the URLs, which is, if you wanted everyone listening to hear one CD by whoever, what album would it be?
Oh, no.
You have one chance to give someone you were going to give this as a gift to the listeners here.
Well, I don't
After
think
all we've talked about.
all we've talked about. Well, Mark, I love instrumental music very much. It means so much to me. And I also love the singing. And there's no record that combines them both perfectly. A lot of them do, but I'm going to have to give you a combo. I'm going to have to give you the greatest singing album that I can think of in this moment. It would be a different answer on a different day. And I'm going to give you the greatest tunes album that I can think of in this moment. So Dick Gaughan's Handful of Earth.
Oh, beautiful album.
Dick Gaughan is one of the finest singers and interpreters of traditional songs. He makes them feel completely new and completely earnest, like as if he is coming up with and saying every word, the way he plays around with the melody, and then the way that he accompanies himself in a way that is completely another human from his singing. I'm moved every time that I hear every single song from Handful of Earth. Yeah. That would be a desert island disc for me.
Awesome.
And it's a classic, and it still sounds fresh. His old songs sound new, and the newer songs that he recorded sound like they're hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
So that would be my desert island disc. There is a newer album that I would also just say touches my heart so deeply that Queeveen O'Reilly and Mick O'Brien made. It's just fiddle and pipes. Two people. No fancy arrangements and no guitars and no drums and no singing. Fiddle and pipes, but I think it's still so accessible and so groovy. It's called Kitty Lie Over. That's the name of a tune. Kitty, Kitty.
That's the name of the album as well?
That's the name of the album, and their names are Mick O'Brien on pipes and Queeveen O'Reilly on fiddle. It's a very special album.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Final thoughts, and any final thoughts, and also where can people find you online?
Well, I love the podcast format, that it's free and available and totally accessible to people, not only as a listening thing, but then they can kind of engage in the community of other listeners of that podcast and, get in touch with the host, ask questions. I love that. I love that you've got this podcast going, Mark. And I've really enjoyed my foray into making Irish music stories. It's been a wonderful project for me to kind of explore what this music means to me and what it means to a lot of my peers and people that I'm just meeting for the first time. But in a broader sense, it's become this surprisingly wonderful way to connect with people all around the world who are listening.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome. And where can people find you online?
So the podcast is irishmusicstories.org. You can find more about me at shannonheatonmusic.com.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. I appreciate you talking, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and I look forward to sharing this with listeners and everyone. And thank you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing it, Mark.
You bet. My pleasure.
As I went a-walking one morning in June to view the fair fields and the meadows in bloom, I spied a young damsel, she appeared like a queen, her costly robes and her mantle of green. I said, pretty fair maid, will you come with me? We'll both join in wedlock, married we'll be. I'll dress you in fine linen, you'll appear like a queen, your costly robes and your mantle of green. She answered me, young man, you must be excused, I'll wed with no one, I can but refuse. Through the green woods I'll wander, shun all men's views, since the man that I love fell at famed Waterloo. Be seen embroidered his name on my mantle of green. In raising our garment I there did behold his name and his surname in letters of gold. Young Willie O'Reilly appeared in my view, he was my chief comrade at famed Waterloo. Your true love and I fought where bullets did fly, on that far field of battle your love does lie. We fought for 3 days, till the 4th afternoon he received his death summons on the 18th of June. As he lay dying these words he did cry, if you were here, lovely Nancy, contented I died. As I told her this story, in anguish she flew. The more that I told her, the paler she grew. Costly robes and her mantle
hope you enjoyed that interview I did with Shannon. I went back to listen to it and was just very thrilled with hearing that interview once again. And I'm really happy to share the stories behind Irish Sessions and how she got into the Irish Music Stories podcast. It was packed full of information. So I hope you enjoyed it. The tracks I played there, in case you missed them, were Thad Casey's and The Reel of Rio and Mantle of Green are the two tracks. You can find links to Matt and Shannon Heaton in the show notes at CelticMusicPodcast.com for show number 692. Thank you, patrons of the podcast. I am blown away by your generosity. You are why I keep sharing new episodes 4 times per month all year long. You're also how I'm able to do that. Your kindness pays for our engineer, graphic designer, Celtic Music Magazine editor, and promotion of the podcast. Your kindness allows me to buy the music I play here. It also pays for my time creating the show each and every week, and to heal up a hip that's going to be gone soon. Or replaced soon. Let's replace. I'm really hoping I get a bionic hip. I'm just saying. But I don't think they're going to. If I don't get a bionic one, then I'm at least going to get the sound effects from the $6 Million Man. It'd be amazing. As a patron, you get ad-free and music-only episodes before regular listeners. You get to vote in the Celtic Top 20. You get free music downloads and sheet music. And you get a private feed to listen to the show. Or you can listen through the Patreon app, all for as little as $3 per episode. Actually, for as little as $1 per episode, you get most of these things. But the $3 is what I'm asking for the lowest level of the actual patronage. That helps keep this podcast running each and every week. A special thanks to our Celtic legends, Bruce, Brian McReynolds, Marty Myers, Alan Schindler, Karen D.M. Harris, Emma Bartholomew, Dan McDade, Miranda Nelson, Nancy Barnett, Kevin Long, Gary R. Hook, Linda McNeil, Kelly Garrett, Mike Schock, Annie Lukowski, and Sean Calley. Thank you so much. These generous people pledge $25 or more per month to support this podcast. And of course, it's now easier to do that because of the new pricing structure over on Patreon. And here is your new 3-step plan to support the podcast. Number 1, go to our Patreon page. And number 2, decide how much you want to pledge every month. $3, $12, $25. Number 3, keep listening to the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast to celebrate Celtic culture through music. You can become a generous patron of the podcast on Patreon at songhenge.com. You can also travel with Celtic Invasion Vacations. I take a small group of Celtic music fans on the relaxing adventure of a lifetime. We don't see everything. Instead, we stay in one area. We get to know the region through its culture, history, and legends. You can join us with an auditory and visual adventure through podcasts and videos. In 2025, we're going to Wexford, Ireland. That's in the southeast corner of the country. I've never been to that area, so I'm really looking forward to exploring it. I know if you've been listening the past couple months, I had said we were going to Galicia in Spain. I have pushed that back one more year to 2026. So if you want to be a part of that incredible adventure and learn about Galician Celtic music, then sign up to the mailing list at CelticInvasion.com to find out about both of these trips and see if you can join me on a Celtic Invasion this summer. Celtic Wooden Wires is up next from their album Into the Music. This is Mrs. Murphy's Daughter.
Half a century ago when I was 23, I courted Mrs. Murphy's daughter, or was she courting me? I took her to the plowman's dance and there she stole a kiss. She said I might steal me more than that, and she gave my nose a twist. God bless Mrs. Murphy, she raised her daughter right. She works fields all through the day and works with me at night. You may say I'm henpecked, with that I'll disagree. You can call me Mr. Murphy, that's alright by me. I met her by the trellis, me and my Sunday best. She was dressed in overalls and a leather blacksmith vest. She said, I've got to shoe this horse, I've got no time to play. So there I was holding up a hoof and I had me quite a day. God bless Mrs. Murphy, she raised her daughter right. She works fields all through the day and works with me at night. You may say I'm henpecked, with that I'll disagree. But you can call me Mr. Murphy, that's alright by me. Me and Mrs. Murphy's daughter, we've had us quite the life. For 50 years and counting, she's been my faithful wife. And I wear the pants in this family, but Mrs. Murphy's daughter picks them out for me. God bless Mrs. Murphy, she raised her daughter right. She works fields all through the day and works with me at night. You may say I'm henpecked, with that I'll disagree. But you can call me Mr. Murphy, that's alright by me. But you can call me Mr. Murphy, that's alright by me. 2, 3, 4.
She rolls into the station, make sure you're standing there, watching and waiting for a glimpse or a glare. Sometimes the doors won't open and you're left to curse and swear. When she rolls into the station, make sure you're standing there. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. You won't hear it coming, boys, you won't see no sign. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. Your ticket has been paid by the ghost of heartaches past. After waiting for so long, you feel the time has come at last. When she comes rolling around the bend, make sure to act real fast. Your ticket has been paid by the ghost of heartaches past. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. You won't hear it coming, boys, you won't see no sign. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. Hup. It might guide you home or it might lead you astray, but it won't stop for very long. Hurry now, don't delay. Jump on board if you can before the break of day. It might guide you home or it might lead you astray. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. You won't hear it coming, boys, you won't see no sign. Love rides a slow train moving down the line. You won't hear it coming, boys, you won't see no sign. Love rides a slow train moving down the line.
After Celtic Wooden Wires came Michael Darcy and the Atlantic Tramps. That was Love Rides a Slow Train from Down to the Roots. And we finished the set with Skyrie. That was The Fish from their album Hunger Road. Hey, it is a brand new year. That means it is also a brand new year to vote in the Celtic Top 20 for 2025. This is our way of finding the best songs and artists each year. The last episode featured the best of 2024. And so you know how good it is. You can vote for as many songs and tunes that inspire you in each episode. Your vote helps me create this year's Best Celtic Music of 2025 episode. You have just 3 weeks to vote this year for each episode, so go cast your vote. And there is a new Spotify playlist featuring the top voted tracks that are added every 2 to 3 weeks, so go check it out. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to finish up one more time with Matt and Shannon Heaton. This is also from their brand new album, Whirring Winds. It was released, I believe, last year. This is Westlin Winds. Thank you so much again, so much for being here and listening and enjoying this show each and every week. I really appreciate all your generous support. I can't wait to share more music this year as we head into the 20th anniversary. Thank you. Oh, stay tuned. There's a Kickstarter coming as well. For the new designs. So you can find those in the show notes as well. I'll talk to you later. Sláinte.
Now Westlin winds and slaughtering guns bring autumn's pleasant weather. The moorcock springs on whirring wings among the blooming heather. Where waving grain wild o'er the plain delights the weary farmer, and the moon shines bright as I roam at night to muse upon my charmer. The partridge loves the fruitful fells, and the plover loves the mountain. The woodcock haunts the lonely dells, and the soaring heron the fountain. Through lofty groves the pigeon roams, the path of men to shun it. The hazel bush overhangs the thrush, the spreading thorn, the linnet. Thus every kind their pleasure find, the savage and the tender. Some social join, some leagues combine, some solitary wander. Avaunt away the cruel sway, tyrannic men's dominion. The sportsman's joy, the murdering cry, and the fluttering gory pinion. But Peggy dear, the evening's clear, thick flies the skimming swallow. The sky is blue and the fields in view, all fading green and yellow. Come, let us stray our gladsome way and view the charms of nature, the rustling corn, the fruited thorn, and every happy creature. We'll gently walk and sweetly talk, while the silent moon shines clearly. I'll grasp your waist and fondly pressed swear how I love you dearly. Not vernal showers to budding flowers, not autumn to the farmer, so dear can be as you to me, my fair, my lovely charmer. Not vernal showers to budding flowers, not autumn to the farmer, so dear can be as you to me, my fair, my lovely charmer.
The Irish and Celtic Music Podcast is produced by Mark Gunn, the Celt Father, and our patrons on Patreon. The show is edited by Mitchell Peterson with graphics by Miranda Nelson Designs. Visit our website to follow the show. You'll find a link to all the artists played in this episode. Todd Wiley is the editor of the Celtic Music Magazine. Subscribe to get 34 Celtic MP3s for free. Plus, you'll get 7 weekly news items about what's happening with Celtic music and culture online. Best of all, you will connect with your Celtic heritage. Please tell one friend about the podcast. Word of mouth is the absolute best way to support any creative endeavor. And finally, remember, reduce, reuse, recycle, and talk with others about climate change. This is the best way to make a significant change to climate policy. So, start a discussion with someone today. Promote Celtic culture through music at CelticMusicPodcast.com.